Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and today is Sunday, June 8th in the year 2025. And I am recording this in lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where the heavens are rumbling with thunder, and perhaps we will get a rain shower while I'm recording this. And this is the last 24 hours or so before Jupiter enters Cancer. Jupiter is leaving Gemini. These are the last 24 hours before it leaves Gemini. Its last 24 hours in Gemini. And as I mentioned last week, Jupiter is entering its exaltation sign. And this is very positive and powerful for all of us. Now, we like Jupiter. Jupiter expands. Jupiter provides opportunities. Jupiter opens the heart, opens the mind, opens our awareness, opens up opportunities. We like this. And so this is more of a heart-opening experience. Jupiter in Gemini has been more of a mind-opening experience. And with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, it is really about the experience of how we want to open our heart, where we want to feel nurtured, what that feels like in our lives, what part of our zodiac's horoscope do we have Jupiter in? So it's in Cancer. Where is that for you? What house is that in? Are you a Cancerian? And is this going to give you a year of blessings and abundance and openness? And what have you used Jupiter and Gemini for in this last year? Like, I know for me, it was really an opening of the mind, a changing of the wiring of the mind, a lot of work in meditation for me, firing and rewiring, as Joe Dispenza says. And so it's been really positive, and Jupiter generally is positive. It can be overindulgence. It can be expansion that we don't feel we're ready for, but we must embrace. Jupiter in Cancer, even though it's exalted and it's lovely there, we are looking to be nurtured. We are looking for a sense of nurture. Sometimes that comes in the form of comfort food, which I did mention last week. Sometimes that comes in the form of unhealthy comfort food, and we have to get an awareness, Jupiter, around that. Open our mind and see what we're doing and how we might be over nurturing ourselves. We're using things that we think are nurturing and maybe not so nurturing at all. Like, people eat for emotional reasons. People eat to feel calm, comforted. That's, hence the term comfort food. If you're eating too many potatoes and too much pasta, this can really give you an overabundance of like blood sugar things. So we want to stay in moderation with Jupiter, and Jupiter can be extreme. So we want to be very aware of the Jupiter in Cancer as well. It doesn't mean we can just go back and relax. Jupiter's in exaltation and I'm just going to have a great time. You do still need to have a balance that you maintain. So I do expect this to be positive. I expect it maybe to bring us closer to family, to our sense of home. What is home to us? What is security to us? What feels like home, and is home a really secure, safe place? Because with Jupiter in Cancer, that's what we're looking for. It enhances the Cancerian qualities: safety, security. Do you have enough money in the bank? Do you have enough food on the table? Cancer and Taurus are traditional signs. They have some security needs that are similar. So you might say, hey, Deb, you say that about Taurus. Cancer too, but Cancer wants love. Cancer wants cozy. Cancer wants to know that my family loves me and I love them, and that there is a family structure, situation, network. Even if it's not a biological family, it's a friendship family. And these are very wonderful, positive vibes that we are trying to encourage. So I really hope that if you feel like you need more family contact, that you reach out and do that to people, with people. You go out to your family and connect with them. You have deeper conversations with them. Jupiter goes deep too. Any planet can go deep, but Jupiter can go deep too. Jupiter can really make a concerted effort towards expanding the family network in these kinds of circumstances. Maybe Jupiter's learning, education, taking a class. Maybe you want to take a cooking class. Maybe you want to take an exotic cooking class. Maybe you want to take a vegan cooking class. Maybe you want to learn how to barbecue. It could be that simple. It could also be, making the nest more comfortable. Maybe you want to really save some money, put money away. Maybe you want to really keep funds for a rainy day. Maybe you want to redecorate your home. It's a great time to do that. I mean, Cancer is about the home. It's also expansion of the family. So if you want to have a baby, or you have relatives that are in the family mind, and then in the family way, as they used to say, the family way, perhaps, there'll be more babies. And maybe you want to expand your family by adopting an animal. That could be it too. So there's a lot to be said for Jupiter and Cancer, and I'm giving you some very mundane examples, like, somebody having a baby it's a big deal, but it's also, oh yeah, so-and-so's having a baby. Yeah, they're having a baby. They're married now for a little while. They're going to have a baby. Or there's a surprise baby, or there's a cat that shows up on your doorstep and expands your family that way. So these are all Jupiter and Cancer things, but they are, Jupiter and Cancer reaches much more extensively than that, because Jupiter is a big planet and it does encourage education and knowledge. And so it wants to reach out and learn things and expand its wisdom. So there could be things where you gain a lot of wisdom from your family. You gain a lot of wisdom from self-nurture. It's where we want to gain wisdom. That's what Jupiter often does. It brings us a dose of wisdom. So wherever that lands in your astrological chart, and if you don't know where it lands, well, then I suggest you either get a chart printout, or you come visit me, the goldenastrologer.com, click book online, and you have a session with me, and we discuss what Jupiter's doing for you, and among other things. So this is important. Now, Jupiter, because it's going into a cardinal sign, and Cancer is a cardinal sign, the other cardinal signs are Libra, Capricorn, and Aries. And Aries, well, we know what's in Aries. Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. They are not there permanently yet, but this is very interesting because Jupiter, now that it's going into Cancer, is going to start making connections in square to Saturn and Neptune. And so this is powerful and profound. First of all, remember last year we had two squares from Jupiter to Saturn. Saturn is more about restriction. Jupiter is about expansion, contraction. We want to kind of look where we need to expand, where we perhaps may have contracted, where we might be playing small, where we might be withholding, where we might be scared, afraid, or feeling a little anxious to expand. Well, can we really afford a bigger house? Etc., etc. That kind of awareness, where what we've been previously accustomed to may need some overhaul and review. And so last year, Jupiter squared Saturn twice, and it's taken all this time for Jupiter to come back and square Saturn again, because Saturn's been on the move too. Saturn moved out of Pisces and into Aries, as you know if you've been listening to me these last weeks, and you'll know that Saturn is just at the very beginning of Aries. So, because Jupiter is in the very beginning of Cancer as of tomorrow afternoon, depending on where you are, it's going to hit Saturn relatively quickly. And that connection is going to come next Sunday, the 15th of June. It's going to be 10:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Jupiter will square Saturn. And Jupiter will be in Cancer. Saturn will be in Aries. Now, this is a continuing story a bit from last year, but maybe with a twist. And maybe it's going to be its own story. This is the last time they're going to do this, okay? This is not more of the same squares and stuff like that we had last year. It's not going to be that way because Jupiter is now going to just keep moving through Cancer, okay? And Jupiter is not going to spend years there. It'll spend 1 year there, or maybe 13 months or so there. And Saturn is going to go back into Pisces. Now, what's interesting is, they're making this square, right, next Sunday. And that's important. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to what Jupiter's showing you about where you might have been small or confined or restricted in some way, and where you're being allowed to expand. And what's going to really be interesting is Saturn's going to go back into Pisces, and Jupiter and Saturn are going to trine each other in November. So Jupiter will not have changed signs, but Saturn will have gone back enough into Pisces at 25 degrees that Jupiter will trine it at 25 degrees. I don't know how much of an exact trine. It's exact enough. They're going to be trining each other, 25 and 25. But, this is important because we're moving from this place of square to not so many months away from now, 6 months or so, 5 months, Jupiter's going to trine Saturn. This is rare. This doesn't happen like this. We've been through this cycle of squares, and now there's going to be a trine coming. So I think that's very interesting. And but they won't go back and square each other again. So pay attention to this next Sunday. And in the days coming, Saturday and Sunday and Monday, what do you feel? What do you connect with? What does it tell you about your life? Because something that might be a conundrum next week or, in the month of June may expand and grow by November. And you've grown and you've outgrown something here that has given you awareness to outgrow it. Something that may feel like a restriction or some sort of limitation for you will grow and get more balanced by the time we get into November. Now, isn't that nice? That could be really, really positive. So pay attention, because it might be a real growth spurt for each and every one of us, and we can really measure that, the experience we're having next Sunday or so, and then what goes on in November. Maybe you want to take note of it, journal it, something. Write on your calendar what happens, and then see if it's been like you've outgrown it, you've gotten enough awareness, you are turning it around, you've aligned with something differently, you feel so much better and more relaxed because the trine is very smooth and very nice, and then the square is, it feels, it's a hard aspect. It's what we call a hard aspect. So it can be feeling like those limitations are now released. So think about it. Prepare yourself for it. What limitations do you notice next week that you want to release by November? What do you want to create so that this is different and a different story in November? It's very interesting for this to be happening, because this is not something common. This doesn't happen very often, where Jupiter suddenly hops from a square to then into a trine very easily to Saturn. So they are interesting planets. Now remember, they met up together in the same place at the same time at the end of 2020. About the 21st of December or so, 2020, there was the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, in the early part of Aquarius, and very early, 0 degrees Aquarius. And Jupiter and Saturn only meet in conjunction once every 20 years, right? So they met, the first squares were last year since the conjunction, and this is the last square, and then we're going to see the first trine. So this is going to be the first trine of those planets since that conjunction back in 2020. So it's very interesting. That was a powerful conjunction. A lot was happening at that time, at the end of December 2020. I'm sure you remember it very well, or relatively well, and the kind of year we had in 2020. And it was Jupiter and Saturn had been part of the COVID cluster with Pluto earlier in the year in Capricorn, and then they moved and conjunct exactly, because they were on and off together and apart during 2020 and were exactly conjunct the end of December that year. So that was a big movement. And so what is it about your life that's changed since the end of December 2020, in those days after, in the weeks after, early January, during Christmas and New Year's that time? What information did you receive? What were you doing at the time? What was happening for you? That was Aquarius, a completely different arena than the sign of Cancer, which is where Jupiter's going now. But I think that their relationship, the planet of, restriction, limitation, structure, order, as opposed to the planet of expansion, then they are really in a place of different energy, different relationship. Conjunctions can be hard. They can be a little hard, with each other. It's a very strong energy. It's a strong signature. And so when we take notice of how those two planets continue to speak to one another, and they won't make another conjunction again until 2040, which is a long time from now. And so let's just take one day at a time here. It's only been 4.5 years, so let's just take one day at a time and pay attention to what the square tells us, and then make note of it, so when the trine comes in November, we know, and you stay tuned to the Golden Astrologer Podcast, you will hear all about it from me, and we can refer back to this time. So other things are happening this week besides Jupiter. So there's a number of interesting things. One of them is Mercury, and Mercury is now, a few minutes ago, just entered the sign of Cancer. And remember what I said last week. They were going to conjunct in Gemini, which they did a few hours ago, Jupiter and Mercury. Mercury was going to move into the sign of Cancer, which it just did about 10-15 minutes ago. And then Mercury is going to take the first square to Saturn, like Jupiter will next week. So that's going to be tomorrow morning, 6:48 a.m. Eastern Time. And then tomorrow, Mercury will square Neptune. So this is interesting because Mercury is very busy. Mercury is busy conjuncting Jupiter today, squaring Saturn, and then Neptune tomorrow. Remember, Mercury moves quick. Mercury moves quickly, and he's a fast guy. And, he finished up Gemini, his own sign, in like 2 weeks or a little over. This is the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. And so Mercury is going to talk to Saturn and then talk to Neptune tomorrow. Very interesting. I would also pay attention to this, because what you're getting is Mercury to Saturn, which is, critical thinking, structured thinking, discipline, duty, responsibility. And then later, 6:54 p.m., which is just about 12 hours later, Mercury will square Neptune, which is more about intuition, insight, beauty, creativity, imagination, visionary qualities. So it's going from maybe limited emotions, limited thinking, to elevated emotions, elevated thinking. And so we want to elevate our thinking through the course of tomorrow. Okay? Don't let Saturn rain on your parade. Look at the way it is with Neptune, and really Mercury is squaring both of them simultaneously. The exactitude is 12 hours apart, but it's really giving us some things to think about, ponder, reflect upon. Okay, and so when we have Mercury doing this, it's sort of preparing the way for what Jupiter's going to do. First square Saturn on Sunday the 15th, and then eventually square Neptune the following Wednesday the 18th. But we're not there yet. So it's anything going into Cancer right now is going to do that. And eventually the sun, once we go to the solstice, on the 22nd, 21st or so, we're going to see the sun go into Cancer and then make those same relationships to Saturn and Neptune. So this is a little bit of a pattern. And, eventually Venus will catch up. Mars is way past all of this. And, Venus is in Taurus. She's not going there for a while. So she's got to go through all of Taurus. She just got there Thursday. And then she's got to go through Gemini. So we're waiting on Venus. But this is Mercury and then Jupiter. So what did Mercury and Jupiter say to you today? What are they enlightening you to? What are you thinking about? What are you preparing for? What are you organizing? That's one thing. The other thing that's going on tomorrow is that Venus in Taurus is squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So this would be something different because Venus is now only probably doing this the second time because she did this last year. And she's in one of her favorite signs, and she really is getting a dose of Pluto's transformative energy. Venus in Taurus likes comfort, likes beauty, likes security. She loves all that stuff. She likes being cozy and yummy and, sitting with her tea on a rainy day in her cozy sweater, okay? And squaring Pluto isn't her idea of a cozy cup of tea. It might be an interesting dialogue with someone who is helping her transform. It's a good day to have transformative conversations tomorrow between Mercury and then Venus, talking to outer planets. I think it's powerful because we may start out with a limited view of something and then have a conversation or an experience or an emotional connection or feelings with Venus squaring Pluto about what we really are working through. So maybe you're working through something profound right now and you have a dialogue or an emotional experience that transforms you or brings you to a new level of understanding of something in your life. So this is really good and important and strong and can be soft too with that Mercury Neptune and compassionate and empathic. So if you're going to criticize yourself in the morning, have compassion for yourself and empathy for yourself in the evening. Okay, so give yourself a lot of empathy tomorrow and compassion, even if you're a little bit ornery in the morning, because we want to really be aware of how our thoughts are playing into our day and our time and our life. Our thoughts carry frequency. Our thoughts change things for us. We want the more positive, expansive thoughts, right? That's more Neptune than Saturn. So pay attention, switch it up if you want to. If you need to, switch it up and create something more expansive for yourself. Then we have Mars and Chiron making a trine, and that's good. That's Tuesday at 3:36 a.m., so that's the middle of the night in this region of the world. And Mars is in Leo still, where it's been on and off since November, really November. And it feels so weird to say that, but Mars is way, way past where it was back in November and December, and it's going to get ready to go into Virgo soon, in fact, next week. So this is the last week of Mars in the sign of Leo, and it's going to be a fresh new day when it goes into Virgo, and we're going to feel like exercising and taking care of our health and being organized and, cleaning up the paperwork and stuff like that. So it's very interesting because we are still in that Mars and Leo since last November, and it encourages creativity and all, but it makes a trine to Chiron. So it sort of goes hand in hand with any new transformative thoughts that we may collect and feel into on Monday. And so, the Mars Chiron trine will be maybe an awareness of where we've been wounded and maybe a lighthearted understanding of it and where it's made us creative in our lives. So this is important. This is really a place to bring awareness to how we're using our Marsy energy, right? That being our passion, our confidence, our courage, those good things. Also our anger. So it's a trine. So hopefully we can manage the anger. So then we are looking at a full moon on Wednesday the 11th. So that's a 20-degree Sagittarius full moon, and that occurs in the wee hours of the night, 3:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, if you're looking at the sky in this region of the world, it's Tuesday night you'll see that full moon, because it's going to be, full, and you'll see it Wednesday night too. But Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter will have just changed signs. So Jupiter is a kind of a star this week. We're going to feel a different energy now that Jupiter is no longer in Gemini, opposing the Sagittarius moon, because that's where, if it took a few more days, it would have been part of the full moon system that's happening on Wednesday, but it's not. And so that's interesting. That means that we're really in a different perspective now with Jupiter. So Sag is about education, a lot of the same things Jupiter is. Knowledge, education, expansiveness, other countries, other cultures. And so maybe something interesting and good will happen for you. Maybe you'll plan a trip. Maybe you'll be studying abroad. Maybe you will learn something from someone who is abroad. Maybe you will meet people who are not from your neighborhood. They're from someplace else, maybe somewhat exotic. So this is very positive and good. And, the sun is still in Gemini, and it will be for a little while. So that sun-moon opposition that occurs under the full moon is going to get us to really maybe seek some new knowledge, and something maybe a little foreign or a little exotic, or take some risks, okay? That full moon also hits and affects the degree of 5 fixed. So if you have anything at 5 fixed, that's 5 Aquarius, 5 Leo, 5 Taurus, or 5 Scorpio. If you have anything there, that is going to feel this full moon, particularly, okay? It might be a little bit of discomfort, but that's okay. Now, Pluto is not at 5 fixed. Pluto is at 3 fixed. And there may be a little resonance there, although that's not an exact orb. That's what we call orb of influence, the distance between the planets. And so that experience of Pluto may kind of wash over the full moon a little bit. So let's see what happens. Maybe some of you will really feel that. Maybe some of you will not. Maybe you're just like, woohoo, Sagittarius full moon. Let's go start the weekend early. Let's start Tuesday night. Hey, if you're taking a vacation, that's a great time to take a vacation, right? The other thing that's happening on Wednesday, the 11th, is that Mercury and Venus are sweetly speaking to each other as a sextile, which is Mercury in Cancer and Venus in Taurus. And as I said, there's that quality of similarity between Taurus and Cancer, and how they make that security a primary concern for themselves. So that's something that we want to pay attention to also this week. So as we start to look at Jupiter and Cancer and feel into where we want more security and nurturing and stuff, then we start to really look at how other planets that are passing through those regions affect us and what we desire. Venus is what we desire. So anything that Mercury and Venus have a conversation about on Wednesday, after Mercury has talked to all the other planets, should be very interesting, and should be something that we are desiring in our lives. Perhaps it has security-oriented things attached to it. The other thing is that on Sunday, when we have that Jupiter square Saturn, we've got a Mars-Uranus. And this is in fixed signs. So you remember Uranus is getting near the end of Taurus, and it's finishing up its tour of duty in Taurus, and we're going to start seeing it go into Gemini next month. Stay tuned for that. And while it's still in Taurus, Mars in Leo is going to make a challenge to it at 5:47 a.m. next Sunday Eastern Time on the 15th. Now, if you are a Mars-Uranus person, you may feel that strongly. It is typically a strong aspect. Whenever Mars gets involved with the outer planets, I always say that there's something we really do need to pay attention to and be careful of. Now, this is when I start saying things like, watch your driving, be careful, keep your eyes on the road, focus. Don't let your anger get the better of you. Don't get ornery or difficult, and use this creatively and in a way to open yourself to new things, to special things, to things we want to bring into our lives, as opposed to the past and our, possibly lingering emotions, angers, frustrations with those qualities of the past. And we really want to open our hearts and open our minds as we get this Jupiter in Cancer, so that when we have other aspects coming along that might be somewhat uncomfortable, we want to use our wisdom that we're being given to create something lighter, better, different, innovative. Remember, Uranus is always asking for innovation and a breakthrough. We always want a breakthrough, a connection to something greater, bigger in our lives. So again, let's not play small. Let's open the door to enlightenment. Let's open the door to innovation, right? That's what we want to do. I think these weeks with Saturn and Neptune have been complicated. I think, my neighbor and I were talking before, and we both, I was going to help her with her podcast, and she signed up with the same podcast host that I do have, and and I went in there and we both just looked at each other and just gave a big sigh, a sigh of what felt like relief, but also like just breathing out. And it was as if we just needed to just exhale. And you probably feel like that too. There's just this desire to exhale and create space. And my hope for you is that Jupiter in Cancer is going to help you do that. And Mars-Uranus can help us do that too. I do think that this, Saturn and Neptune, when we get planets like this conjuncting one another, like we had Jupiter-Uranus last year during April, and then we had, I mentioned the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction from a few years ago. Saturn is now conjuncting with Neptune, and sorry, they're not exact yet, but they are conjunct. Sorry, they are conjunct. And, this brings heavy stuff, but it's for our growth and for our expansion and for our evolution, our evolutionary process and transformation. Saturn is not the light bringer that Neptune is. Neptune can bring light, but Saturn can also make you very wise, where you might be, getting fooled by Neptune's energy. Neptune can get you fooled. And Saturn can say, no, you don't want to do that. That's a risk you don't want to take. Just be wary of that one. Saturn can overdo itself. It can be overly cautious too. So we want to just be aware and balance those energies. Saturn and Neptune are almost opposites. And, it's funny because Saturn and Jupiter in some ways are opposites. Jupiter's about, like I said, expansion. Saturn's contraction. We expand and contract all the time. But Neptune is really about the ethereal and the mystical and the mysterious. Saturn is about 3D reality. And they are very different energies. So coming together like this, we want to use this to the best of our ability. I think it's been exhausting already. These last few weeks have been complicated and have shown us that there are knots to untie. There's things to unravel. There's stuff that we want to change and create. And we are a bit impatient because it's Aries. Remember, we want to start something new. We want to connect with a fresh new energy. But it's not so fast, folks, because it's giving us a taste of it and getting us used to it. And like we're getting comfortable with that, spicy Aries energy. But then it's going to go back into Pisces. Both of them are going to go back into Pisces. And then we're going to relive this threshold again. And there's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to be that we want to connect to about that. Saturn and Neptune are traditionally, they bring big changes. So I think we're starting to see some of them, but we're going to go backwards and go back into the past a little bit later this year for a few months. And then next year, February, that's when Saturn and Neptune finish Pisces and they leave. And then we really see the two of them together for good in that moment. They won't stay together. Saturn's faster. Saturn will keep moving faster past Neptune. So they'll have a moment. They're together in February, March, close by. And then Saturn will leave. Saturn will get past it and march along into the sign of Aries. And we will all march forward into something new. Because whenever the zodiac starts anew, especially with outer planets, we have a lot coming that is brand new for us, and it's not a joke. It's not just like the same old, same old. Something's going to change. Ooh, and the thunder rolls in just as I'm saying that. Something's going to change, folks. So bigger stuff in your life, overarching themes in your life, they're all going to change. So what do you want to change? Take control over your changes. Take power over it. Don't say, I'm at the mercy of change. You're not. Empower yourself. Do something to create the changes you want, as opposed to getting smacked around by the changes that just show up without your conscious control. Make it conscious and make those changes. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to have a session with me and find out where all this business is going on for you, then we can talk in a session. Connect with me, thegoldenastrologer.com. Book a session, book online at that website, my website. You can email me your thoughts and your experiences, info@thegoldenastrologer.com, deb@debmcbride.com, and I'm on Instagram, the Golden Astrologer. So I invite you to work with me so that we can see where all these big shifts and changes are going on for you. And I'm available for Reiki, for 5D Reiki, and I'm available for any emotional clearings, and I'm available for expansion mentoring, which is a longer journey with me. So if you want to spend this roller coaster of the outer planets with me guiding you, you can do that. You can sign up for 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months of this, and that should get you through these months, and we can do all sorts of clearing of beliefs, creating what you want, making a vision and going and getting it, all that good, exciting stuff. So that's expansion mentoring. And if you aren't sure what you'd like to do next, then certainly email me, contact me, and we can have a discussion. Have a beautiful week. Happy Jupiter in Cancer. I will see you next Sunday, or I'll see you on the internet, and we will enjoy this first week of Jupiter in Cancer together and see what it's all about. Have a beautiful week. Gratitude to all for listening.